Just turn the volume up here. Sorry. Always a little too loud with your own, you know, the rhythm that you're in. Both. Yeah, that's for online and that's for the house.
Just 2 minutes. 2 minutes to introduce. Yes, Vedanta families is another good gathering today. As always, we value your presence very preciously. It's a treasure for us. Without your presence, no event can take place. On the other side, you derive spiritual advantage by coming to all these special events. And today we have Swami Atmajnananandaji Maharaj from Washington, Greater Washington, D.C. Vedanta Center. And we are fortunate to have him for the second time. The first time he came in 2016, February. I think at that time, Maharaj, this shrine was not modified when he came, right?
No, we were talking about breaking through the wall at that time.
It was a single house, half of that is the shrine. So I remember that situation.
It's not my third time here.
This is the third time, Maharaj.
Third time, yeah, I thought so.
And just to give a brief background, I will not dwell too much. And Maharaj just started coming to Sri Ramakrishna order under the guidance of Swami Swahananda Maharaj. You see, our founder of this center, the last center he founded during his lifetime. That's significant. And Maharaj spent under his guidance in monastery, Tobacco Canyon monastery for 15 long years. In that center, he served. And as we all know, that Maharaj was initiated to Brahmachari by 12th president of the order, Bhuteshananda Maharaj. And in 1996, he was initiated to sannyas. 1997, posted to the Vedanta Center of Greater Washington, D.C. And since then, Maharaj is there, continued to be resident minister. And I will not dwell much on Maharaj research at the University of Pennsylvania.
No.
I will not dwell much.
No, don't even mention it.
What contribution to magazines and other things of the Ramakrishna publications. But one thing I would like to mention, just we have screened Maharaj video, study circle. At that time, we also went through some of his topics. One is ABCs of meditation. And what I liked, unique in Maharaj's presentation is theory, practice, combined, and conclusion is the most practical aspect. Especially ABCs of meditation, that conclusion is very practical, absolutely practical, something unique. So today we will see some of this lecture on Maya, the great enchantress. And usually his lectures, you see the topic, you feel like clicking and listening to it. For example, peeling the onion, or fit to be Brahman. Some of these topics are extremely intriguing and very interesting, absorbing. So Maharaj, now it's all yours. Please take advantage of all these spiritual benefits you have by attending this event. Thank you.
Maharaj, if you could just switch the mic.
Thank you for that very short, simple introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here again. I feel the presence of Swami Atmajnananandaji very much here. And I see you have a picture of Swamiji just at the very end of his life. When I met him the first time, it was 1974. It was in Berkeley. He was tall and thin, wavy black hair. He could walk so fast you couldn't keep up with him. And I had this tremendous privilege of his guidance and his love for many, many years. So I'm very, very grateful to Swami Swananandaji. He was really, really like a father to me. Yeah. We have such a wonderful, close relationship with him. It's been very touching for me to be here, just standing next to that beautiful picture of Swami. So yes, so our topic this morning is Maya, the great enchantress. I'll start with a very well-known verse from Bhagavad Gita. Devi Shiesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya Mameva Ye Parvadyante Mayam Etam Tarantite. Verily, this divine illusion of mind, made up of the three gunas, is difficult to cross over. They alone cross over this illusion who take refuge in me. Now, using the word illusion, it means Maya. It can mean so many different things. We'll see that the term itself has a long history, that it's explained in different ways in all different traditions. What I want to do today is go through some of the ideas and concepts that we have about Maya with the clear understanding that it's impossible to explain Maya itself. We can talk about the concepts and the way we try to understand it. Maya, by definition, by its very nature, is inscrutable. We can't expect to have some very logical understanding of what Maya is, because by definition, it's something that's beyond the realm of ordinary logic and reasoning. But it's a very helpful doctrine, and it's not just a doctrine. There's some reality that we're talking about. There's a reason for the importance of this concept, that it's not just the imagination of the philosophers, that there has to be something that helps us to explain that which is impossible to explain. Yeah, I was a philosophy student, and I know the limitations of philosophy, and I know the pride that the philosophers take in coming up with a foolproof system, and they all have flaws. And there's some element to philosophy. There's some element to life. There's some element to this world that we live in that defies explanation. And because of that phenomenon, we end up with this concept of Maya. So I just want to make that very clear. Don't think that you'll come away from this saying that now I understand Maya and I understand how it works, because then you haven't understood it. Yeah. So the whole idea of Maya is somehow tied in with this idea of ignorance. And to try to analyze ignorance is an impossible task. They give an example. Suppose we want to know the nature of darkness, and we want to shine the light on it in order to see what darkness is like. It disappears. Then we say, no, then let's go in the darkness. We can't see it because it's dark. So this is the type of challenge that we face with regard to Maya. If we shine the light of knowledge on it, it'll disappear. This is at least what we're told. And if we try to understand it through the human mind, which is caught in the clutches of Maya, we won't be able to do that either. So this is the dilemma that we face, that when we try to understand this concept of Maya. There's a verse that you'll find this in this Vedanta Sara. a very nice verse. I like this very much. It says, Avidyaya avidyatvam idam evatu lakshanam yat pramana asahishnutvam anyata vastu sabhave. Avidyaya avidyatvam. Avidyatvam means the ignorance. If avidya is another word for Maya. What is the lakshana? What is the defining feature of ignorance? That it can't be understood. The defining feature of the ignorance. So defining feature of vidya or Maya is its very unintelligibleness. Yat pramana asahishnutvam. Sahishnutvam. It can't bear the presence of any of the standards of knowledge. If it could, anyata vastu samaya, it would be something real. So everything that we say is true or real. It means that one of the pramanas is working. Either I saw it, somebody told me about it, I can infer that it's true. That with this Maya, we can't substantiate the existence of Maya through any of the pramanas. So we'll have this pratyaksha. Suppose we hear something and outside the house, and we think that a thief may be there. We go out of the house and we see, yes, there's somebody running away. So this is pratyaksha. Suppose we go there, we don't see anybody, but we see footprints. We make an inference on the mana that there must have been somebody there. Suppose we don't see anything, but our neighbor saw. And the neighbor says, yes, that somebody came, was a thief trying to get into your house. So this is Shabda. So these are the three main pramanas that we have. And when it comes to Maya, we can't substantiate it. We don't see it. The inference is that there must be something, but we really can't do that. And when we read the scriptures, they'll say that it also can't be defined. Sadasadvi lakshana. It can't be described as either real or unreal. This is what we're dealing with this concept of Maya. So we have a very strange phenomenon, a concept designed to help us understand that which cannot be understood. And the concept itself cannot be understood. So we have these different types of questions. For example, how did the universe come into existence? Or how does the one become the many? How does the unchangeable Brahman manifest this changing universe? These are all conundrums, philosophical types of conundrums. And these are things which really defy some type of explanation. That if we, for example, if we want to figure out, did this universe come into existence at any particular time, or did it always exist? Now, these are the two options that we have. Now, if we think of the chicken and the egg, right? So we start out with the premise, you can't have a chicken without an egg, and you can't have an egg without a chicken. So either we believe that there had to be a chicken that was born without an egg, or there had to be an egg that didn't come from a chicken, or there was never a starting point. There was always an egg that preceded a chicken, and always a chicken that preceded an egg. This is a logical fallacy. According to logic, this is called fallacy of infinite regress. You can't have a beginningless series. So we're left with the two possible conclusions about the origin of this universe. Both are impossible. So how do we explain it? Maya. So think, what are we actually doing that we're giving a term to something which we don't understand, which helps us to think that now we understand it. This is all we're doing with this concept of Maya, that it's giving us the impression that now we know, well, how did it happen? What happened because of Maya? What is Maya? Maya is that which makes the impossible possible. Now, this is an explanation that if we analyze it, there's no explanation. But the mind is searching for something to hold on to. We can't live with this idea that both options are impossible. The mind doesn't like that idea. It's very hard. We can think if we're watching a movie and there's some scenario in which something happens that couldn't possibly happen. It's a movie, somebody wrote it. But if it's actual reality, we can't accept that fact, this human mind, that we have something we can't account for the existence of. And that's this invisible universe that we have. So we come up with this idea, there must be something, we'll call it Maya. Now I want to quote another very nice verse. It says, Achintya kuruye bhava, latang starakena yoje, parakari bhyam param yajya, tad achintyasya lakshanam. One should not try to apply logic to those things which are beyond the realm of reason. Achintya. Achintya is something that is unthinkable, that we can imagine. And yet we're trying to use tarka, use logic and reasoning to explain this. So it's very clear. He says, just don't do it. Don't try to do it. We have to somehow accept the fact that there's something mysterious about this universe. As Ramakrishna is so very clear about this, that who has the even who can imagine that they can understand this universe, the ways of God. He says it's like trying to pour 5 seers of milk into a 1 seer cup to try to understand these things. He's very clear about that, and yet we don't listen to him. We keep trying to come up with some logical conclusion, some logical way of understanding all of these things. So this concept of Maya is paying tribute to the human mind, which cannot accept the idea that there's no answer to a valid question. We just either the egg came first or the chicken came first. It has to be one or the other, or there was a beginningless series. It's very hard, and yet we'll hear over and over again from beginningless time. This cycle of creation has been going on from beginningless time. Now, for a logician, this is impossible. Any mathematicians here, logicians here? You can't have a series that doesn't have a starting point. It may not have an end point. Swami Vivekananda gives a nice illustration of this in one place. Suppose we look out the window and we see the branch of a tree. And we're told that the branch going in that direction, it can continue to grow. There's no limit to it. It can go as far as it possibly wants. And then somebody says the same thing on the other side. It's not possible. It has to be a part of the tree. There has to be something there that it's extending out of. But to say that something is an endless series and beginning of the series, it's like just the branch suspended in the middle of the air. But we use this terminology all of the time. We talk about this from time without beginning. Because, as I say, there's something that defies logic about this world that we live in. And this is what we call Maya. So Swamiji says it's a statement of fact. We know that this is the dilemma that we're in, and yet we can't explain it. Now, if we think about a work of fiction, for example, you know about this mystery writer. What was her name? This Murder on the Orient Express. Agatha Christie. Yeah. Okay. So picture this scenario. There's a murder that takes place on the train, and there are 6 people who have a possible motive. And she'll go through the whole thing, and they'll all have alibis. And it'll turn out that one of the alibis is a weak alibi. And somehow you find out who the murderer is. Now, suppose that she writes a novel where everybody has a perfect alibi, and it turns out that nobody did it, and yet there's a murder. So we can say it's a poorly written novel. But if it's reality, if we're talking about some historical event, can the mind live with that idea that there's a murder and all of the people who could have done it, that nobody did. The mind won't accept that. Huh? Somebody had to have done it, right? So with this universe, we'll come up with all of these ideas. There has to be a God who created something and created it out of nothing, or there had to be some cycle, there had something that will let the mind feel that we've understood. So for the schools of Vedanta that don't simply rely on this idea, yeah, accept that God did it, and God can do whatever God wants to. Good, if we accept that, then free. We don't have to worry about anything. But is it very logical and rational? Perhaps not. You know, the question of faith, some people are fine with it. In fact, that would be why they believe in God, because there has to be someone who creates and starts the whole thing. That'll be their definition of God. But we have two options with this. We accept Maya, or we say this universe doesn't really exist. We have this Ajatavada, this Gaudavada. But then why even this false, elusive universe that we think exists that doesn't exist? Why do we even have that? Yeah, very often we're told that these are bad questions. You can't ask this question. That if it's all illusory, then why is this? So suppose there's a dream, and we're dreaming of a house, and somebody says, you wake up, who built the house? I said, it wasn't part of my dream. I can't say who. Nobody built the house. I just dreamt it. That's the reason for it. I dreamt the house. But if it's reality, everything has to have a sufficient ground for it. So if I write a novel, I can talk about an individual and the mother and the father and the grandparents. Somebody said, who were the great grandparents? I don't know. I didn't write it into my novel. But if it's reality, there had to have been great grandparents. They had to have names and lives and everything. We just don't know it. Yeah. So if it's a novel and there's some flaw in it or something, some impossibility of understanding, we can accept it with a novel. But if it's reality, that we can't accept the fact that there's a murder, but nobody did it. There has to be an explanation. Yeah. But there's no explanation. So we come up with this term, Maya. We say, okay, now I understand. So to me, this is really what we're doing with this concept of Maya. And let me give a few examples. We have a child who sees that when water gets colder and colder and colder and reaches that 0 centigrade, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, it turns into ice. So the child asks, why does water turn into ice when it reaches that temperature? And the mother says, because that's the freezing point of water. Now, this is no explanation whatsoever. Nothing, or the same thing, that it reaches the boiling point. Why is it? Because that's the boiling point of water. So the child says, okay, now I understand, right? So then the child will say, how is it that the plant can get nutrition from the sun? So the mother says, photosynthesis. The child says, oh, okay, now I understand. How does a caterpillar turn into a butterfly? And they say, yes, through the process of metamorphosis. So I say, okay, now we have an explanation how it took place. But it's only adding a term, it's not explaining it. Now, scientists, of course, will understand a little bit better, but this is a little bit what we're doing with this Maya, that we're giving a term to something which makes us feel that we've understood. What is that can make the impossible possible, Maya? What does that tell us? If we really analyze it, it tells us that we're just not willing to accept the fact that we have no explanation for some things. So this is why Swamiji says that this Maya is a statement of fact. We see this universe before us. Whether we say it's a projection, whether we say it's creation, it doesn't matter. That projection out of Brahman that it placed there. There are all these metaphysical questions that will come up that don't have good answers. So we satisfy ourselves by either saying Maya or we say that God can do anything. It's another way of saying the same thing. That this Maya is that which makes the impossible possible. How does the one become the many without undergoing any possible change? The easy answer, Maya. But it's really, as I say, it's not really telling us very much. Now I want to get to Sri Ramakrishna because he has a very beautiful way of explaining these things. Except the fact that the human mind cannot grasp these things. He tells M over and over, he says, promise me that you won't engage in what he calls vichara. Now, this vichara, this is a very interesting concept that we have because it has a very positive meaning and a very negative meaning. Sometimes Sri Ramakrishna says that constantly practice vichara. That means constantly analyze between what's real and what's unreal, what's of value in human life, what will get us entangled in the world, what will be shreyas and preyas, what will be ultimately for the welfare of all and for our own welfare, what will be for just temporary enjoyment and pleasure. Do that type of vichara all of the time. But there's other type of philosophical thinking where we try to come up with solutions for everything. We hit a wall. If we can understand that philosophy takes us to a certain point and it doesn't take us beyond that. This is, to me, this is the benefit of studying all different philosophical systems. I studied all these Western philosophical systems. I was a philosophy student. So I studied all of Western philosophy and then studied all of, not all of it, of course, but a good deal of Vedanta and everything. And they all have very nice systems that are not foolproof. Everybody can pick apart this or that. And Sri Ramakrishna, he understands that these are not meant to be taken as truth. He has a very strong position about this. When he says pot, this is a famous statement, that we generally think of this in terms of different religious traditions. As many religious faith traditions, each one is a different path. But this term mata, it means darshana. It means Advaita Vedanta, Vishishta Advaita Vedanta, all the different schools that we have, that they're meant to be understood as different paths that we can follow. That he said, not one of them, you won't find the truth in a single one of them. He says, you squeeze the almanac, no water comes out. This beautiful song, Ke Jani Kali Kanon, that who can understand who Mother Kali is? You won't get the vision of Mother Kali through the 6 systems of philosophy. Shaddarshan, Darshan Payana. You won't get it there. That we have to transcend all of this, do some spiritual practice, have some religion. And we'll get to that later. So he tells that again and again, he tells them that don't engage in this type of philosophical argumentation in the mind, this type of vichara. And he specifically talks about this achintya idea. That there's some things that are beyond the realm of ordinary human understanding that can be understood only through some type of direct realization. And even then, we won't be able to explain them. Even Brahman itself, forget about Maya, even Brahman itself. What can we say about Brahman, the nature of Brahman? Nothing. He says that very clearly. Brahman is the only thing that has never been defiled by the touch of the tongue. No one can say what Brahman is. So we have 2 categories, Brahman and Maya. One is the ultimate reality. We can't say what it is. And the other is this funny type of illusory power. We can't say if it's real or unreal, if it exists or it doesn't exist. And yet, the reality is within us, it's the real self, and we can have the direct experience of that. So rather than understanding Maya, we try to transcend Maya. We try to have that ultimate type of experience. So this understanding is what allows us to realize the value of spiritual practice and the limitations of the human mind. There was a very famous Western German philosopher, Kant, and he wrote something called this critique of pure knowledge, and there's a whole section called antinomies, and he takes all of these big questions that is there one or many? Was the world created in time? Did it always exist? Different things. And he says that each and every one has some logical flaw, whichever position we take, created in time or always existed, something like that. So he comes to the conclusion that the mind only works within the realm of time, space, and causation, which is what Swamiji, how he explains Maya, and that the ultimate reality is beyond all of these things. So this Uchishta, there's a very nice verse, if I can remember it. Uchishtam sarva shastrani sarva vidya mukhe mukhe no chishtam brahmano jnanam avyayam chetanamayam. This same thing that Thakur says, that all of the scriptures, all of knowledge have been touched with all different tongues. That means people have come up with different philosophical systems. But the knowledge of Brahman has never been touched by the tongue. It's never been been explained. It's only something to be directly experienced. So we have a dilemma. This dilemma is between what we can understand as truth and what we can understand as fact. Two different things, truth and fact. So we have two basic truths of Vedanta. Brahman alone is real. Brahma Satyam. And this means that there's some basic unity. There's only oneness really there. Everything can be reduced to one changeless type of reality. And there's a Brahman itself is pure consciousness, is pure spirit. So this is Brahma Satyam. Then this Jiva Mithya is the second thing. So this whole universe doesn't meet the level of reality that Brahman does. Now everyone will argue about this. Is it simply illusion? Is it simply transitory? Is it something that we'll leave behind us? Sri Ramakrishna, almost invariably, he uses the term anitya. He says, I don't like to call this world unreal like a dream. He doesn't say that's a position that is false. He never talks in those terms. It's a question of what appeals to one and what's helpful for the person. Because the ultimate truth is beyond all of these things, real and unreal. There's nothing to do with it, completely beyond. He says, see, everything analogy we use is helpful to give a little hint. But he says, if you want to know what ghee tastes like ghee. The experience of Brahman, there's nothing that compares to it. We talk about the sun and the reflection and everything. It gets a little bit hint. But Brahman is not like the sun, and the mind is not like water. It's a very helpful hint. And we can use it if we like, very helpful, but it falls far short of truth. Truth is experience for Sri Ramakrishna. Yeah, I gave a series of talks on this peeling the onion and also weighing the bell fruit. Now, for the Advaitin, peeling the onion is good. We get rid of everything, the outer coverings, mind, body, senses. We get the real self within, and we find that self is one. There's not a plurality of jivas. There's only one reality, only one sun. Very good. This bell fruit idea, this will be Ramanuja. That, yeah, Brahman is like the bell fruit, but it has lots of seeds inside, all individual separate seeds. And so each individual jiva has its own separate existence. Now, the outer skin is this visible universe. Now, the followers of Ramanuja and the followers of Shankaracharya, they'll fight to the death over these two. No, there can't be many jivas. There can only be one. Yeah. And for Sri Ramakrishna, he likes both equally. He doesn't make any distinction. Yeah, you want to follow this path, and you want to look at it from that point of view, that can lead you up the road, up the stairs to get to the roof. This is the only consideration. Jotoma totopot. This is a very valid way of looking at things. He liked a dualistic point of view. He liked all of them. You remember the great statement Thakur quotes many times. Hanuman was called into the court in front of everybody, and Rama is there, and he says, "How do you look upon me?" And so Hanuman is very quick. He says that Deha Buddhya Tudasoham. When I think of myself as the body, then I think that you're the master and I'm the servant. Dualistic position. Dualistic position. Then he says, Jiva Buddhya Twadang Shagat. When I think of myself as an individual soul, then I'm a part of you and you're the whole. This will be Ramanuja. And then he says, Atma Buddhya Swami Atmajnananandaji. When I think of myself as the Atman, you and I are one and the same. And then he says, Iti me nishtita matihi. This is my final, most mature conclusion. Conclusion means all of them. That it's a question of how we think of ourselves at the time. If we feel connected to the body, we can feel I'm the servant of God. Now, some of you say that it's a dualistic position. People say dualistic as if it's a dirty word nowadays. Yeah, for the Advaitin, yeah, dualist. Yeah, but for Sri Ramakrishna, he emphasized that so much. Have a relationship with God. Now, why did he say that? Because the stick of ego doesn't disappear, he said. It may just be apparently separating one side from the other. That means that Dvaita Vedanta may be true. But from a practical point of view, utilize this sense of I and have a relationship with God. It was very practical. One of our great Swamis, Swami Atmajnananandaji, he made a wonderful statement. He said that the tradition that we follow in the Ramakrishna order is that we're Dvaitavadins and Dvaitakadins. That means that philosophically we can accept this ultimate truth of oneness. From a practical point of view, that we live in this world of duality, and we can have this type of relationship, look upon God in any of the relationships, as mother, as father, as child, any of them, that this is a practical way of climbing up the steps to the roof. All of these doctrines are just ways of getting there to the roof. None of them have any claim to any absolute truth whatsoever. Now, it doesn't mean that every position is equally good. Some are full of contradictions, some are full of superstitions, some are full of prejudice and bias, that our way is the only way. So we don't want to abandon logic and common sense and everything, but the truth is something beyond all of these things. So we have these what we call the truth in Vedanta. Brahman alone is real. The fact is we know nothing about Brahman, and we think that this world is real. If the second truth is this world is illusory or transitory or somehow less than real, the fact of the matter is that we take it to be 100% real. And this feeling that Jiva is nothing but Brahman, we're completely identified with this human body. So how can I say that I'm Brahman? That the fact of the matter is that I'm accepting philosophically something which goes against the facts of everyday life. So there's truth on one side and fact on the other side. And this is the explanation that we give for why is it so is Maya. Now we're going to get into this idea of Maya as something that really has some effect on us. So we can say almost that now this Maya is a veil of ignorance that covers us. That the sense of false identification is due to Maya. So now we're really talking about this avidya, some type of ignorance. Now, if we look at the way Maya was used historically, that we find that this concept itself has changed tremendously. In the very beginning, and to me, this is probably the best example. In the very beginning, it meant something like magic. That Indra to his Maya, because there's something that is not logically explainable. If we see magic and we ask, well, how did the magician do it? And the answer is, it's magic. Now, another magician will say, no, there's no such thing as real magic. We know that there's an explanation, there's a trick, there's a way you do it to make it look like magic. But if we don't know that, then we accept that. Okay. It's magic, that means don't ask questions. That you just accept it as magic. So that was the earliest use that we have. When we get to the Upanishads, this term Maya isn't used. And we have what we can call a realistic explanation for creation. It's not materialistic, but realistic. That means that some real projection comes out of Brahman. And even that projection is not this whole created universe. If we read Taittiriya Upanishad and others, it's the different elements are projected first. See, Brahman thinks may I be many, and then projects out of that the fire will come, fire thinks may I be many, and water comes, and then they all combine and everything. Of course, the Upanishads are a type of poetry. We can't really take these as some strict philosophical idea, but we'll find that this concept of Maya only comes back with Shvetashvatara Upanishad, one of the late Upanishads. Now we start to see this Maya as not just some type of ignorance or some type of magic, but Shakti. Now we'll see this transformation of this concept of Maya into some type of power. And if you remember the Gita verse that I started with, that he says this divine Maya is made up of the gunas. It'll also become identified with Prakriti at some point. I'm going to read a quote from Swamiji. He had some beautiful lectures about this. This is called Maya and Illusion. Much later on, in one of the latest Upanishads, he's not mentioning the name, but it means Shvetashvatara Upanishad. We find the word Maya reappearing, but this time a transformation has taken place in it, and a mass of new meaning has attached itself to the word. Theories had been propounded and repeated. Others had been taken up until at last the idea of Maya became fixed. We read in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, know nature to be Maya. So now Prakriti itself is coming to be identified with Maya, and the ruler of this Maya is the Lord himself. Now, what we're going to find is that we always have two things. And one is considered a male principle, the other a female principle. We have our Shiva and our Shakti, this type of idea, and Sankhya, very distinctly separate, Purusha and Prakriti. And when we get a little higher up on the pole, when we get to Advaita Vedanta, we have Brahman and Maya. And even grammatically, one will always be masculine, one will be feminine. Because the masculine element is supposed to be transcendent and actionless, and the female side is the active. This goes back to the different roles that men and women play. The woman is the one who gives birth to the child. So this woman is always that Mother Nature idea is there. Anyhow, so we're going to get to this idea of power, and Sri Ramakrishna likes this. You know that he was insistent on this idea that we can't understand Brahman without understanding Shakti that goes with it. That it's like trying to understand fire without the power to burn. So his concept of Maya, we can really say, was more or less this idea of Shakti. Now, the ignorance aspect of Maya is the individual aspect. If we start out with the Brahman covered with the ignorance somehow, then it gives rise to this universe. That's a very difficult type of concept. So we can accept this idea that through this Maya Shakti, through some power of projection, somehow this universe comes into existence. Maya, this Brahman enters into everything and forgets. Brahman forgets itself and identifies with each individual. It's a very unusual idea. Brahman itself falls under the veil of Maya, but remains unchanging. So let me give an example of how we can somehow understand this a little bit. If we take the example of the sun. Sun is very often used for consciousness. The sun illumines everything. Now, the light of the sun is colorless. Light has no color. Light allows us to see color, but itself has no color. Does everybody accept that? Yeah. So if this colorless light only has that quality of being colorless, then there's nothing that could make it disperse and become all of the colors. When it goes through a prism, it becomes all of the different colors. This prism is Maya. If we say this light of the sun, go into this prism of Maya, on the other side comes out all of the possible colors. That means that the light of the sun must contain in some potential form all of the colors. So this means that Brahman has to be both nirguna and saguna. And when it becomes all of the different colors of the universe, it remains unchanging on the other side. It remains unchanging. Now, the same light, the same sun, doesn't simply provide illumination, it gives us warmth. It gives us the life, prana, that plants grow from it. So for Sri Ramakrishna, he gives equal value to Nirguna Brahman and Sadguna Brahman. If we want to be very technical, we can say that in Dvaita Vedanta, it gives almost complete emphasis on Nirguna Brahman. And the Shista Dvaita Vedanta gives almost full emphasis on Sadguna Brahman. That means the bell fruit. That you can't accept the bell fruit. You can't just simply say the flesh is the essential part, that the Brahman, that you're not getting the full weight. So, but for Sri Ramakrishna, equally he accepted everything. He accepted everything because he knew that reality is something beyond all of these different things. So Sri Ramakrishna liked this idea of looking upon this universe as a manifestation of Brahman, this Aishwarya, glory of Brahman, because he accepted the fact that there's a certain Shakti. So now we can start to think of Maya as this Chit Shakti, this power to project. So we've gone from just some type of cosmic illusion or cosmic ignorance to some power that inheres in Brahman. If Brahman has no power, then we can't explain anything. We can't explain anything. If we start with the premise that Brahman is actionless, Brahman is pure consciousness, that Brahman is formless, now how do we explain? And we say this universe is just an illusion. How do we explain even the illusion? So what I started to say before, if we say that something is just a dream, don't ask any questions about the dream because it's just a dream. We say, okay, I won't ask any questions about anything within the dream, but I can ask this question, where did the dream come from? If suppose somebody is sleeping, then and that sleeping person dreams, has a dream. There has to be something which turns that sleeping person into a dreaming person. And the sleeping person is what we call Brahman. The dreaming person is what we call Ishvara. And the created universe is what we call Jagat, the dream world. And the actor within the dream is the jiva. But when we wake up, the jiva turns out to be none other than the dreamer, who is none other than the sleeper. There's no distinction between any of them. But how do we account for the dream? We can't account for the dream. Why did Brahman not simply remain Brahman? The only way we can account for it is with this idea, Maya. There's for some strange reason. There was one German philosopher, Heidegger. He said that one big unanswered question is, why is there anything at all? It's a strange question. If we want to start out with the Brahman, okay, well, let's say the Brahman. The Brahman is no beginning, no end, pure consciousness. But why is this universe, and such a strange universe? And with so much violence and horrible things in it, how do we possibly explain that? So anyhow, for Sri Ramakrishna, he accepts the fact that it's inscrutable, but there has to be some Shakti attached to Brahman. So this is why he says Brahman and Shakti are abhed. They're inseparable. And sometimes he'll say that he used to say to Narendra, he said, you don't like this idea of Kali. You know what I call Kali, what you call Brahman, I call Kali. That is nothing but a Brahman together with its power to create, to project this universe, to enter into this universe, to dwell within all beings. This is that Shakti. So this is how this idea of Maya comes. It gets a little bit lower and lower, and then until it becomes identified with nature itself, Prakriti. So everything we see, we can say manifestation of that Brahman, of that Maya. Now, when we get to the individual, because we talk about I'm covered with Maya. That means that I'm failing to see things as they really are. I falsely identify with things. Now it's real and tangible, and it affects all of our lives, and we can deal with it. The cosmic element is beyond everything with regard to explaining this universe that we live in is speculative. There's no way. Maybe the great mystics have some deeper insight, but just from a logical point of view. But from this human individual point of view, we can very easily understand how we fail to recognize the real nature of the self and falsely identify with everything else. So this is a whole different animal. When we're talking about, sometimes they use different terms, Maya for cosmic things and Vidya for individual things. So now we have two different types of Shakti, this Avarana Shakti and Vikshepa Shakti. So it simply means that I don't recognize the real nature of the self, and I superimpose all other things on it so that I think of myself as a physical human being. I identify with all the external things. I identify with my race, with my religion, with my gender, with my politics, all sorts of things. This is generally what we do. If you ask on who are you? Can you define yourself? Explain who you are. We'll give these explanations. Yeah, where we were born, how old we are, all of these different things. And the real nature of the self is consciousness, is that I've been witnessing all of this through a whole lifetime. And this is the real sense of I. The sense of I that I have is that I'm a conscious being. The existence of a chair is one thing. A chair doesn't know that it exists. A chair just exists as a thing. I don't exist as a thing. That's part of it, of course, but I know that I exist because I have consciousness. I have awareness. Nobody can tell me I don't exist. This is, I know that I exist, and this is just intuitive. This is something that is undeniable, and yet I falsely identify with all of these other things. So we have these different shaktis. We have this avarana shakti hiding the real nature of the self, and this vikshepa shakti that covers up everything. And we identify with all types of false things. Now, Sri Ramakrishna makes the statement that the ego itself is Maya. This ego itself is Maya. That means that my sense of I is now tied in with all of these lower aspects of things. So now we're going to get to some practical stuff that Sri Ramakrishna says that, okay, you're falsely identifying, and this is a typical thing. We all falsely identify with something. Falsely identify with something that will take you closer to God. He uses this expression, aropkara, that do some type of role playing, even to try to think of yourself in relationship, some divine relationship. He says, bhav. Yeah. Bhav, asura korte hoy. You ground your spiritual life in a relationship with God. Now, the Advaitin will say, why should I do that? This is a dualistic thing that I want to feel that I'm one with God. Good. If anybody can feel that, the one with the Brahman, then that's fine. But Sri Ramakrishna says, you intellectually you understand that. And you can tell yourself 1,000 times, next minute, this ego comes back up. So you take a great jnani So look at Totapuri. Totapuri, Sri Ramakrishna's Advaita Guru. He had the highest realization. He had the samadhi and everything. Knew one with the Brahman. This world is unreal. There's a Hridai comes one day and he wants to take some wood from the sacred fire, Dhuni, to light his tobacco. And his Totapuri got furious. So Sri Ramakrishna laughed. He said, you telling me this world is unreal like a dream, and he comes and takes it, and you get so angry. Yeah. So Sri Ramakrishna says that this rascal ego will come back. So he says, let this rascal ego remain as a servant of God, as a child of God, form some type of relationship. So this ego, Thakur says, is like a stick that's lying on the surface of the water. Now, intellectually, we know that it can't separate one side from the other. On the other hand, it gives the appearance, because the ego is lying there, it gives the appearance that there's water on one side, there's water on the other side. If we don't know any better, we may even think we go to a swimming pool and they'll put some rope there or something. It'll give the appearance, this is the deep end, this is the child's end, something like that. So he says that this stick of ego is lying on this ocean of consciousness, making us feel separate from everybody else and separate from God. And what we're trying to do is eliminate this ego. But we've already heard that it can't be eliminated. So he says, transform it. So now we have this concept of the unripe ego and the ripe ego. So he says, form a relationship with God. If I think of myself, I'm a child of the Divine Mother, then what is the nature of that I? It's no longer this physical body. Physical body, I'm a child of my biological parents. Child of the Divine Mother means I have to think of myself in terms of spirit somehow. So this is a type of spiritual practice that we do in order to form a relationship which will transform our ordinary sense of I, sense of ego. Now, with this type of practice, suppose, look at Sri Ramakrishna, suppose he wants to worship Rama. So what does he do? Whole mind is fixed on what? Hanuman, not Rama. Hanuman. He has to become Hanuman. He even hops from place to place. He ties his cloth like there's a tail in the back. He eats fruits. He does everything so that his mind will be identified with Hanuman somehow. And once he's done that, then he's fit for feeling himself to be a servant of Rama. And then he proceeds. He did that with all of his spiritual practice. When he wanted to worship Sri Krishna, what does he do? He becomes a gopi. Even dressing like that and ornaments and spending all of his time with the women, just to convince his mind that he's in the perfect state of mind to feel that attraction to Krishna. And what does this do? He says it cuts this identification with this earlier type of identity that we have. So this is a very beautiful type of spiritual practice that that we get with this idea of this ego being Maya. Now, there's another idea. Yeah, I'm going to get too late. What time did we start? I'm getting a little bit late. Let me just tell this other idea. Time is Maya. Now, this to me is the best explanation. And when Sri Ramakrishna says that I don't like to call this world unreal, but he says anitya. Now, anitya, what does anitya mean? Does it mean this world is transitory? I don't think so. I think what it really means is that time is swallowing up everything. Now, suppose that this everything, all the furniture in this room, suppose that it'll never change, that it won't decay. Nothing will happen to it. But I am going. Yeah. That my life will go. I'll leave it all behind. That this is the real transitory thing is me, myself, is this I. So anyhow, he says that this time itself is Maya. That if we look at things from the point of view of time, then everything is unreal. that each moment is dying, is disappearing in time, each moment. And we can really get that sense of unreal, not in the sense that it's an illusion, that I'm imagining everything. No, we're all living, we're all in the same world, same room, seeing everything, but each second is going, whole life is going. So we have this beautiful story that Swamiji tells of Narada and Krishna. Let me read that, then I promise I'll stop soon if you will. A legend tells how once Narada said to Krishna, Lord, show me Maya. A few days passed, and Krishna asked Narada to make a trip with him toward the desert. And after walking for several miles, Krishna said, Narada, I'm thirsty. Can you fetch some water for me? I will go at once, sir, and get you water. So Narada went. At a little distance, there was a village. He entered the village in search of water, knocked at a door, which was opened by a most beautiful young girl. At the sight of her, he immediately forgot that his master was waiting for water, perhaps dying for the want of it. So that means Maya. The veil of Maya came over him. He forgot everything and began to talk with the girl. All that day, he did not return to his master. The next day, he was again at the house talking to the girl. That talk ripened into love. He asked the father for the daughter, and they were married and lived there and had children. Thus, 12 years passed. His father-in-law died. He inherited his property. He lived, as he seemed to think, a very happy life with his wife and children, his fields and his cattle and so forth. Then came a flood. One night, the river rose until it overflowed its banks and flooded the whole village. Houses fell, men and animals were swept away and drowned, and everything was floating in the rush of the stream. Narada had to escape. With one hand, he held his wife, with the other two of his children. Another child was on his shoulders, and he was trying to ford this tremendous flood. After a few steps, he found the current was too strong, and the child on the shoulders fell and was borne away. A cry of despair came from Narada. In trying to save that child, he lost his grasp upon one of the others, and it also was lost. At last, his wife, whom he clasped with all his might, was torn away by the current, and he was thrown on the bank, weeping and wailing in bitter lamentation. Behind him there came a gentle voice, my child, where is the water? You went to fetch a pitcher of water, and I am waiting for you. You have been gone for quite half an hour. Narada exclaimed, 12 whole years had passed through his mind, and all these scenes have happened in half an hour, and this is Maya. Yeah, if we analyze time, then we find that really what is a whole lifetime? I often wonder that we ask ourselves, how long did the past, those who are at least 50 years old, how long did the last 50 years take? How long did it take to live that 50 years? Yeah. Just like that. We get to the end of life, just like that. I have this fear, this kind of theory, personal theory about length of life. That when we get to the last day, it won't make any difference how long we lived. It'll all be just a flash that went by. We worry about how we live, and not this is length of life. At the very end, really, this time is mine. I like this idea. It's a tangible type of thing. And we can really see how this idea of life being like a dream, Swapnava. Thakur didn't like it if we take it very literally. If it's a dream, then I alone am the actor in this whole play. Yeah. But if we understand it that way, that Maya is giving us a feeling of permanence, and everything is fleeting. Everything is just going by. But the real self is unchanging. And if we can hold on to that and realize that, or little stick of ego is there, fine. Feel the divine presence within, that witness within, look upon that as God dwelling within the heart, the Antaryaman, the inner controller. And that little bit of Maya is something for us to hold on to in a whole lifetime. This is a very positive type of thing. So this is Ramakrishna's advice to us, that accept this Maya and work within it. Look at this Vidya Maya aspect. Let it be something helpful. And then ultimately identify it with the Divine Mother. And this is exactly what we have in this Gita verse. This Divine Maya. They alone who take refuge in me. We can say in the Divine Mother. They alone who take refuge in me surrender to this inscrutable power that we don't really understand, and see everything as handiwork of God, as part of this divine play, this Leela idea. And then we can transcend that. Either they alone will transcend that Maya, will take refuge in me. It's a very beautiful way of trying to understand it. Ramakrishna says in the Gospel, the Jnani, follower of the path of knowledge, rejects Maya. Yeah, it's unreal. We don't want to deal with it. The Bhakta devotee, however, does not ignore Maya. He worships Mahamaya. Taking refuge in her, he says, "O Mother, please stand aside from my path. Only if you step out of the way shall I have the knowledge of Brahman." The Jnani explains away all three states, waking, dream, and deep sleep, but the Bhaktas accept them all. As long as there's the ego, everything else exists. So long as the I exists, the Bhakta sees that it is God who has become Maya, the universe, the living beings, and the 24 cosmic principles. Then again, one must propitiate the Divine Mother, the primal energy, in order to obtain God's grace. God himself is Mahamaya, who deludes the world with her delusion and conjures up the magic of creation, preservation, and destruction. She has spread this veil of ignorance before our eyes. Why? Know it. First we play. It is for fun. Know it. She has spread this veil of ignorance before our eyes. We can go into the inner chamber only when she lets us pass through the door. Now, what happens when the Jnani goes beyond Maya and sees everything in this dreamlike way? And this, I really promise I'm going to stop with this. I'm going to read from the letter that Swamiji wrote to Josephine MacLeod. And we can see Swamiji entering into this state where he's seeing everything through this, really as it's just this play of Maya. We can say unreal on some level. I'm drifting again with a bright, warm sun ahead and masses of vegetation around. And in the heat, everything is so still, so calm. And I'm drifting languidly in the warm heart of the river. I dare not make a splash with my hands or feet for fear of breaking the wonderful stillness that makes you feel sure it is an illusion. Oh, it is so calm. My thoughts seem to come from a far great distance. In the interior of my own heart, they seem like faint, distant whispers, and peace is upon everything. Sweet, sweet peace, like that one feels for a few moments just before falling into sleep, when things are seen and felt like shadows, without fear, without love, without emotion. Peace that one feels alone, surrounded with statues and pictures. The world is, but not beautiful or ugly, but a sensations without exciting any emotions. Oh, the blessedness of it. Everything is good. Om, that existence, beautiful, for things are all losing their relative proportions to me, my body among the first. Om Tat Sat. So I'll stop here. Would anyone like to ask any question?
I have Q&A here.
Okay.
Yeah, take this through. Any questions?
Do you have a question? Craig asked the question.
If you're confused, then it's good. We're supposed to be confused with, anyhow, good.
Hey, Swamiji, my name is Shonak, and I was curious while you were talking about that. So is it kind of a resistance? So can I summarize, or maybe not summarize is probably the wrong word. Can I at least get a hint in saying that Maya is resistance which allows forgetfulness uh, in some sense of achieving the goal? Uh, so, for example, like just basically have a very small example of this. Suppose, for example, my wife sends me to take it to the supercenter to actually uh, get some groceries. And when I actually left my home, I remembered all the groceries that these are my activities. So I reach to the grocery and I find my friend over there in the parking lot. I see him, I get excited, I talk to him for half an hour. And then and then I move inside, I see another friend, and who's with this little kid. And I talk to them about their school and other things. So I get delayed in the process. And then in the process, by the time I am actually searching for my stuff, in particularly in the grocery, I've forgotten a few things. And then what happens is I have to, so I go whatever I collect, and then I go up to the cashier, and then my list is incomplete, I know. And then I return back, and my wife sends me again.
Yeah, yeah.
I need to complete the list.
Yeah.
So is it something that Maya is that I can think that there is an inherent resistance in knowing the reality on your very first go, or is it assisting me to really take simple steps at a time, explore the world, and then move on? So
This is a very beautiful uh, doctrine that Sri Ramakrishna has, that this Maya is neutral. That if this Maya keeps us attached to the world, then it's a negative thing. But the same Maya, if we can utilize it. So he says it's a Vidya Maya and Avidya Maya. That just like the two thorns, he uses that example. We step on a thorn, that we need a second thorn, which is of the same nature. They're both thorns, but the second one will eliminate the first. Then we don't save either one. Then we throw them both away. So this Maya is really when we're talking about the individual level. This cosmic Maya is yeah, that we can get near that. We just say, okay, mother, thank you. Yeah, but the individual level, then it's inherent in the human nature that even as we grow up as children, that automatically our sense of identification is with tangible things. Well, children have no sense of the self. They first they identify with the mother, even. Then they can separate somehow. They can understand they have a body. Not until they reach a certain age do they understand they even have a mind or some ego sense that grows. By the time that grows, then the whole mind is going in the wrong direction. So Kathopanishad says this, yeah, as if some injury has taken place. The senses are all going outward, so we fail to see the real self within. We can say this is Maya, but it's just something inherent in human nature that we created in such a way that we have to undergo some real reverse process in order to know our real nature. So this is one way of understanding Maya.
thank you.
Now, there's one other type of a definition that we get, and this is how Maya is used. I don't know about other languages, but in Bengali Maya is used in a completely different way. I'll tell you a story. I lived with a family in India for a number of months, almost a year. I rented some small rooms on the ground floor. They lived on the upper floor. I was there for fellowship. And I became very friendly with his family. So one day the father said to me, he wasn't much, maybe 10, 15 years older than me, but he said to me, you know the meaning of Maya? Now, here I'm a philosophy student. Yeah, I got some idea what it means. And then he says, I said, why are you asking? He says, we've developed some Maya for you.
Oh,
So Maya means some love and attachment. It was very sweet the way he put it. I wasn't really familiar with the way it's used, but Yeah, so there's Maya also, and Sri Ramakrishna says Maya as opposed to Daya. That same love and attachment that we feel for our near and dear ones, we want to feel for everybody. Make that Daya. So this type of Maya, if it's love that we feel for others, it'll lead to attachment, and at the same time, it can make us selfless. It has good things, both sides to it. So this Maya can be understood as just this relative unit, living in this relative world, the universe that we live in. So Lila and Nitya. The Lila is also the Maya, this relative and the absolute. So we want to utilize, we have some false conception of I, and then turn it into a very positive idea of who we are. That, yeah. And we can we can have our pride and we can have our anger and all of those other things. Yeah. How proud Hanuman was. I can do anything. We say, well, what pride he has and ego. That we read in Gita, I'm supposed to feel I'm not the agent of action. Yeah. Who can feel that? Something we think we did it. So the Hanuman, how much pride he had. Yes, I can do anything. I'm the servant of Rama. Swamiji wrote this beautiful Sanskrit hymn, poem. He says, we can unhinge the universe. We can crush the stars to atoms. Don't you know who we are? We are the servants of Sri Ramakrishna. So this normally pride is a bad thing. This is one of the things we're supposed to get. But if we think of it in terms of some divine relationship, we can be proud to be devotees. We can be angry that we're not making progress in spiritual life. This is what Thakur says: give it a twist, morph it out, turn it in the other direction. So we can utilize this Maya also and make it something helpful in spiritual life. Otherwise, what do? Yeah, we're in the midst of it, so we might as well turn it to our advantage. Yes.
My name is Madam. So I'd just like to share one experience, and thank you, Maharaj, for your beautiful explanation of a very complex subject.
Yes.
I just like to share one experience and then see how it relates to Bichara, as Thakur said many times in Kathamrita. Many decades ago, I took 2 graduate level, PhD level courses, theory courses, and the syllabus under the same professor. Both syllabus say, main goal of my course is to prove all what you have learned thus far are wrong. And this is a theory course, advanced macroeconomics, and theory should be theory. They say all what you have learned, my goal is to prove all are false. So Bichar, we do all the Bichar, how far we go. We have a limitation in our mind. We cannot go far. So this is that thing, and when I read Kathamrita, it gives me this parallel feeling that, we need bhakti, we need vichar, but we have a limitation. If we are doing too much vichar, maybe we'll end up somewhere else where we should not be. Thank you. If you like to make the comment.
Yeah, this Swami Atmajnananandaji Maharaj, he made a very wonderful statement about vichara. He said that Suda's vichara, in the positive sense, and vichara means really try to analyze what is the real nature of the self, what are the coverings of the self, and all of that. Vichara cannot take us to the highest truth. It can eliminate all false conceptions, and then truth reveals itself on its own. The mind can't take us there, but through analysis, I can understand that I'm not this body, not even the mind, all of that. I'm something beyond all of that. Through that type, very helpful type of vichara. To keep reminding ourselves that no, I'm not that. Don't reduce me to just this appearance. I'm something transcendent beyond that. But ultimate truth will be beyond all of that. It will be something experiential. So vichara, we don't want to abandon it. But if it's the type of vichara that prevents us from diving deep in spiritual practice, that's the thing. So Thakur says, you have to read the grocery list if you want to know what to buy, but don't keep reading it over and over again. You read it once, you know it, then you can even throw it away and then go buy the thing, cook the food, eat it. Yeah. So we have to put all of these things into practice, and know that Brahman can be experienced as our own self. But if we want to get there just through reasoning, we won't. We'll hit a wall. We won't be able to get there just through reasoning. But it's helpful. It can give us some conviction of the truth of it also. So we don't want to abandon reasoning, never. Swamiji says that we can never reach the highest truth through reasoning, but it will never contradict reasoning. So we have to know the value of this type of analysis. It's helpful to a point, very helpful to a point, but we don't want to get stuck in it.
Pranam Maharaj, my name is Kanat. So from what you were saying, seems relating back to the chicken and the egg, reality as we experience it is a paradox. Can't be explained through logic, rationality. And in that regard, it seems like for us, devotion and bhakti is how we would attain to that. The knowledge of, or I don't know if knowledge is the right word, because even knowledge of Brahman again is a paradox. It's beyond what we understand on a human level. And so in that regard, devotion is, for us, it seems like the only way that we can hope to attain that kind of realization. So I was wondering, is that what Ramakrishna was talking about when he prayed to Divine Mother that, I offer my knowledge and my ignorance, take them and just give me pure love for you. Is that kind of what?
No, I don't think he's saying I'm offering this highest knowledge of Brahman. He's just saying all of the pairs of opposites. Yeah. Now, the conclusion should not be that this path of knowledge is not a wonderful, viable path. And with Vichara, this path of this Vichara Marga, this path is a beautiful type of spiritual path. And we can constantly analyze the nature of the self. This is the distinction. If we're talking about Maya's cosmic function, then how this universe comes into being, then we can't realistically hope to understand that. But if we understand Maya to be this veil of ignorance that's causing us to constantly falsely identify, to make us feel small and weak and fearful and full of anxiety and look upon people as strangers, and we know that this is keeping us in the grip of passion, and we want to be free from all of that. And we do it by constantly reminding ourselves that I am that reality, that I'm the witness. This is a path of jnana, and this Vichara Marga is very, very important and very helpful. We don't abandon that at all. Now, for Swami Krishna, he said for most people, their sense of attachment is a little strong. This traditionally, even Gita, we read chapter 12 of Gita, that for those who, most people, for those who, Deyavat, it says those who have some feeling, strong identification with the body and everything, the path of devotion is simpler and easier. But for Swami Krishna, path of devotion is always superimposed upon this ocean of oneness. So he says, keep the knowledge of Advaita and tie it in the corner of your cloth, and go about and then do your spiritual practice and everything. But he says everything ends in oneness. So we can say if we want, I won't pigeonhole him in any way. But he accepted this ultimate truth of Advaita, the ultimate truth that everything ends in oneness. Only he didn't like this idea of looking upon this world as something unreal, if it means that we don't care about anybody or anything. If we see it as a passing show, this anitya idea, good, that'll be helpful for us not to get too attached to things. But if we look at Swamiji, for example, Swamiji was an Advaitin, that ultimately the self is everything, but how he cared for the world and how real everything was and how the suffering of other people affected him so much. Yeah. So we have to understand that this Advaita Vedanta essentially deals with the oneness of Jiva, Jivatman, and Paramatman. And there are all different interpretations of how this Maya works with this external universe, whether we take it as a manifestation of God, projection, false perception, however we understand it. But in general, you'll find every Advaitin will somehow feel that we're in the common universe somehow. Otherwise, no Advaitin will stand up and give a lecture to anybody if it's all the figment of his imagination. So, so this is not meant to show that the knowledge is something that is not helpful, but Sri Ramakrishna makes it very clear that you want to follow that path, you have to have great detachment, not care for any relationships, and really this Vairagya has to be extremely strong. So the Jnana Marga was generally thought to be for sannyasins. Traditionally, it was taught that way. But there are many householder jnanis. Thakur talks about that. But we can and should have this feeling that this relationship and everything, and this stick of ego, that ultimately is the highest wisdom comes in knowledge and experience, is I will merge. Now the path of knowledge, the lover merges with the beloved. It then ends up in oneness. Swamiji says, this path of devotion, love is a cord that pulls us closer and closer. We start at, he says, everyone starts as a dualist in the path of devotion. And the love is a cord brings us closer and closer and closer until we attain to that state of oneness. Union or oneness, however we want to look at it. He talks about this Sufi poem that the lover goes to the door of the beloved and knocks on the door. And she says, who is it? And she says, it is I. She says, go away. And he knocks again. Who is it? It is I. Knocks again. She said, who is it? It is thy very own self. And then she opens the door. Yeah. So the path of devotion, yeah, we shouldn't think when Thakur talks about this path of devotion that somehow he's a dualist in the sense that one can never realize one's identity with the absolute. There are dualistic schools that say Jiva and Brahman will eternally be separate. You know, Ramakrishna, he won't say anything like that. But I'll say this path, the devotional path, can take us to the experience which is beyond description. Then there's no one or many. Even with Brahman, sometimes he says that Brahman is beyond one and two, beyond, and sometimes in between, Sat and Asat. Somehow we can't even say, is it Purna, is it Shunya? Is it the void, is it the infinite? We can't say. Somehow in between or something beyond, or just can't be expressed in words. He says it so many times. Jitendra, no question.
Anyone else?
No further question. We have prasad distribution in the next house. So please walk across the back way path and come to the other house for prasad.
I hope it wasn't too